All right. Hello, everybody. We are live. So, we have the man, Freeman Beals, here with us today on the Unicorn Connector Show. And he is one of the most positive people that I know. So, it made perfect sense that we would have him on the show today because this week we're focused on the unicorn DNA that says unicorns are uplifting and have a positive outlook on life. So, who better than Freeman Beals to have on the show? He started 365 Positivity, posts uplifting, positive, and educational content every single day, and has a newsletter to do this as well. And without getting into all too much, Freeman, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction? Tell us about yourself.
Woo! Wow! Thank you so much, Daniel. That was great. That countdown was awesome. I feel so energized and ready to go. Yeah. So those of you who don't know me, my name is Freeman. I run this lovely brand called 365 Positivity. Daily LinkedIn posts that go out. I'm on day 246, I think today. Weekly newsletter Monday mornings that drops, and it's really full of actionable stuff and inspirational things to kind of start getting you to live that happier, healthier, positive lifestyle. And I also have a podcast as well, which Daniel was on a couple weeks ago. So it's kind of come full circle. It's cool to be back on this one. And again, yeah, thanks so much, Daniel, for having me on. I'm excited to get into kind of talking about positivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important to be reciprocal. And so, as I've been looking at bringing on people to the show, I wanted to reciprocate to those that have had me on their show, sooner rather than later. So, we have a structure behind each week that we focus on, and it's all related to the unicorn DNA strands. So, it made perfect sense. And so, yeah, so here we are. And I don't
Love
know
it.
why, but my screen keeps getting all funky on me, but that's all
It
right,
looks it
So
looks good from this side. It looks
I
good from
keep
this side.
like
You're good.
losing half of my face to the green screen or whatever. I guess I'm green. But anyway, so I one thing I wanted to point out, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, we have a ticker that is showing, what Freeman Beals has going on and where you can access his newsletter as well as his golden connection and a dream that he has. Because I think that it's so important to communicate those things with the world because you never know who might watch it for just the right amount of time. And if you know that that's what Freeman's trying to accomplish, I want us to leverage the power of numbers and make that happen. So that's why it's there. If you have any way of supporting him accomplish those dreams, accomplish what he's trying to do, meet his golden connections, which he stated were podcast hosts, people that want other people on stages, people like that. Then let's connect with Freeman. So Freeman, why don't you tell us? We're gonna talk about how to. We're gonna talk about daily practices of positivity and how it can contribute to a happier, healthier, and more successful life. Right. So I like to incorporate that with connecting. And ever since you submitted your information to me, I've really been thinking about how that title and everything contributes to connecting and how it has a positive impact on the world. So I'm not going to give my answer. That'll come some other time. I'm curious to hear from you, as somebody that connects with other people, which I believe, which you and I met from Social Saturday posts and supporting each other in all sorts of different ways. Social Saturday is a great way to connect with people that are open to meeting new people on LinkedIn. And, it can be whatever you want it to be, but Social Saturday Squad is what we're talking about. So shout out to Victoria because she's the one that started that movement that ultimately brought Freeman and I together. So thank you, Victoria and Freeman. I'm so glad that we connected because I think you're a very amazing person. And yeah, so long-winded way of getting to the question. How do you think that maintaining a positive outlook on life and uplifting other people and ultimately connecting with people, how do you feel like that can create a positive impact in this world?
Man, this is such a great question. So, to kind of lean into that, really what you were talking about, let's talk about Social Saturday because I think that this really will kind of put a lot of these things in there as well. It's a lot of people have maybe like a bad outlook on Social Saturday, right? I've definitely heard people who are like, oh, these like connection things, like it's just people kind of tooting their own horns and trying to get free followers and stuff like that. But here's a living example of what happens because of it. There is no doubt in my mind that obviously we would never have met because of it. There's a ton of people potentially watching this stream or watching this later on who I know only because of Social Saturdays. So everything is what you make of it, right? And so if you look at things in a positive light and optimistically, you're going to make better things of them because that's just how you're going to look at them. So the same comes with connecting with people, right? If you're connecting with people and you're just doing so because you're like, man, I just want to meet these people, find out what they're doing, see what they're about, talk to them what they're about, and you're just doing it in like an open and sort of optimistic way, then you're more likely to get people who are willing to kind of give you a chance with something or saying, hey, I really like the way that you're looking at this and that. Do you want to come do this thing? And you begin to like those collaborations start happening a lot smoother and a lot cleaner, and they have the right intention, which really makes them that much more powerful to finish off this is when you have those collaborations with the right intention, with the right kind of goals and positive forward thinking on it, you're going to get insanely impactful things happening from those collaborations.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you, Freeman. So tell us just a little bit about, you talk about collaborating. What kind of experiences have you had when collaborating with other people where keeping a positive attitude when dealing with these people has really contributed to the success of that collaboration?
Man, let me pick like I'm going to try to like wire them down into some of the best ones. I've spent a lot of my life doing a lot of sort of um, conflict resolution. Whether it be playing in middle management for a long time means you spend a lot of time doing conflict resolution. You're trying to make the people below you happier and the people above you understand what's going on. So there's a lot of conflict resolution there. And especially when you're dealing in those types of situations where maybe things are heated, people have differing opinions, that maybe there's been a miscommunication in some degree, approaching those with like a positive outlook and an optimistic thing and trying to maintain that level of happiness is so key because otherwise it just dissolves into nothing, right? So you have to go into that situation and be like, how can I make this a good outcome? What's the good outcome of all this? And how can I help steer the people in this conflict resolution into a more positive space? To get more granular and more specific, I guess, a good example I have of that is I worked in the oil fields for many, many years as a lead foreman. So obviously there was somebody above me who kind of helped with some things and set up work. And I had a team below me that helps me on sites to finish things. So talking between those two, I get my boss who's like, hey, this thing has to happen. It's got to be done by like tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like probably not going to happen. That's an unrealistic timeline, but that's okay. Let me go to my team and, be like, hey guys, our boss really thinks that we can potentially get this done by tomorrow. I think that's something that we could try to achieve, blah, 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 blah. Instead of being like, nope, that's not possible. And then telling my team, hey, we have, boss has unrealistic goals from us. And doing that when I started there, it was a very negative atmosphere. And as I began to kind of make those small changes, the people that worked for me, my team, began to be like way more efficient. They were way more reliable. They really took pride in the work they were doing. So our workmanship went up, and then things just started to happen quicker. And then those timelines that were unrealistic when I first got them started to become realistic timelines because my team would work so hard because they were so tied in to how good of a job they were doing. So that's just one example of how doing that can make those big differences.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense, right? When you are working with people and somebody doesn't have a positive attitude, or you're trying to work in a team and somebody's just not feeling it, that can really bring so many people. That can bring the whole project down and just make it a complete drag. So I love that. I think it's so important that, people in a workplace are focused on maintaining a positive attitude. So,
Mm-hmm.
so real quick, I want to just kind of rewind a little bit because first, I love that you've got the Santa hat. That's just such a positive way to show up to a live stream. I think that's amazing. And you got your bright yellow hoodie. That's just so great, And so Um, I don't know if do we have any Santa? What are they
Ooh.
called? What's that group called?
Trevor
Um,
put that lovely group together with all the people with Santa hats that we've been building, and it
his
is the best
Santa's
group,
helpers.
man.
Santa's helpers.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Any Santa helpers in the house, say hello. If you're here, please say hello. I would love to know that we've got people supporting us. I see Samantha Sierra is here. Is it? Yeah. And and we've got Hunter McConnell and Rod Vialba. Rod's super awesome. He actually really helped with the app that we've got, the Unicorn Connector app. Um, that was a grueling project, not because of Rod. Rod is super awesome, but because the project was just intensive. I really, needed a lot of special things to make that happen. And this is a perfect tie into having a positive attitude when you're working through things. I don't know how many times Rod and I had to restart what we were doing. Rod, if you have a guess to how many times we had to kill a zap and start over, throw a number in the comments because, it was like we would work so hard on this thing and then realize it's not going to work that way. So we had to scrap it, start from scratch, and completely think through the whole operation again and go at it again till we finally got it to work. And had he or I not kept a positive attitude, that would have sucked. I'm not gonna
Well,
lie.
you would have given up, right?
I mean, no, I don't know, maybe, but it was I'm pretty determined to get that to work. Um, but I mean, it's just so important that you stay positive and keep the end in mind and know that what you're going for is going to be worth it in the end? And so I think that's super important. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
100%. I think that you touched on something that's really, really powerful there as well. We fail a lot in life, especially when we try to do something new, right? Like building that app, right? You think, oh, we try this thing, oh, it doesn't work. Oh, we try that thing, it doesn't work. And I'm sure people listening have been in these situations as well, right? Whenever you start pushing out of your comfort zone, you get into situations where you're going to ultimately fail at something. Something's going to go wrong or something's going to fail, right? So if you can have that positive outlook, then when that thing fails or goes wrong, you don't dwell on it. You go, okay, that thing happened. Again, I'm going to look at what I can improve from it and not necessarily just pay attention to what was wrong. And then how do I move forward and again get closer and closer to that goal? And if you don't have that positive outlook, that falls apart, right? Really, really quickly. One of my favorite things that I kind of like talking about around this point is if you could imagine when we started learning how to walk, if people were like, very negative at you when you started to learn how to walk, and every time you fell down as a baby, they would be like, oh, that person's never going to walk, or oh, they're never going to figure it out. You would just stop walking. You would give up. You would never start to walk. So I think it's really important that, we kind of treat those situations like that as well, right? And not just from yourself. You need to keep that positive attitude as well. But yeah, as Samantha says, failure is necessary for growth, 100%.
Yeah.
So keep that positive thought for yourself as well, and put that out. But also, if you see others around you or people you're working with, and they fail at something, don't berate them. Sure, walk them through the lessons they've learned, but be like, all right, what can we do from that? What can we learn from that to build to keep going? Is a much better approach than just being like, oh, that sucked. Oh, you did this wrong. That's not constructive.
Right. So, and going into how that applies to connectors, and anytime you're meeting with new people, anytime you're connecting with somebody, working with somebody, when you treat somebody poorly versus having the ability to say, hey, it's okay, it's all going to be okay, it's going to work out in the end. That travels, that negative, that attitude, whether it's positive or negative, can travel like how many people do you think that can travel your attitude? I think it's endless.
Oh, it is 100%. The ripple of that is huge, and unfortunately, the negative ripple is heavier than a positive ripple. So that's why
Mhm.
it's so much more important to have a positive impact, because you need to offset any kind of negative ripple that might have been caused.
Right. Yeah, 100%. So Freeman, have you ever had an experience, and we can go one or two ways, where I'll give you both scenarios. You were either not having a great day and somebody came around and brightened your day with some sort of positive remark, compliment, or something that uplifted you and made you feel just so much better to where that next interaction you had was just 1,000 times better because of that? Do you have any experiences or stories like that?
100%. A recent story that I had with that is so with my positive newsletter, like I said, I've been doing that for a while now, and I send it out to all my friends and family to kind of start getting some traction on it. And this is just last month, actually, about a month and a half ago now. I was doing a speaking gig, and I was sitting there. It was a fairly large crowd. It was like 70 or 80 people in person, right? So there was a fair amount of nerves, obviously, even though I've been kind of doing some degree of public speaking for a while, it still made me feel really nervous. And I was sitting there and I'm thinking through my speech in my head. And I'm like, okay, here's the points I want to hit. Here's how I'm going to do that. And of course, then you start thinking, okay, what are people going to think? And even though I'm a positive person, it's always hard to control those thoughts and rationalize with them, right? Um, and as I'm doing that, there's a gentleman speaking, introducing me and kind of doing his own little bit. And I'm not exaggerating this by any means. It was like a minute to 30 seconds before I was supposed to stand up. I got a message, and I had my smartwatch on at the time. And I got a Facebook message from one of my friends. And I looked at my watch really quick to see what the message was. And it was just, hey, Freeman, I just want to say thank you so much for your weekly newsletters. They really helped me start my week grounded and feeling like I can get a lot more done this week. And then like 30 seconds later, I had to stand up and give the speech. And it was so empowering. It was like, wow, like talk about like affirming that I'm where I need to be doing the right thing. And so it was a little thing, right? He just sent to me, this is like on a Tuesday morning, and my newsletter goes out on Monday. So it wasn't even like it, the timing wasn't right. And it was super quick. He was like, oh, maybe I'll just shoot Freeman a quick message. So I definitely encourage people to do that, right? Just if somebody pops up into your brain, something they do is good and you enjoy it, just send them a message, send them a text, an email, whatever. A voice memo if you're, just walking around. And because it makes such a big difference. And you never know when it's going to reach that individual. And they might get it exactly when they need it.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. And getting that just right at the right time. I mean, think about the impact that your newsletter has. No matter how many people are subscribed to it, you impacted one person at least, right? Who not only felt so uplifted by it, but he felt the need to or the desire to reach out to you and send you a message right when you needed it at, the most, right? So that's just full circle, right? But think about how many other people he impacted between the time he read your newsletter to the time that he communicated that with you. It could have been
Mm-hmm.
it could have been hundreds. You could get on an event, it could be a public speaking engagement, it could be a podcast, it could be a Zoom call, a networking event. And because your message came on that Monday, the time between then and when he messaged you, and who knows how much longer after that, that he was continuously spreading that positive attitude could be just astronomical. And it doesn't just end there, right? It goes on and on and on and on and on, right? Until somebody throws a wrench in it, something happens, right? But I think that it's so important that, you know, what we're doing here today exists, that we're talking
Mm.
about ways that you can identify, tips to tap into that positive mindset. So,
Mm-hmm.
why don't we talk about
Yeah.
some of those?
I was
What
going
are
to say
some ways
that's
that you exercise that muscle?
That's a great one to tie into that story is like, so that's a practice of gratitude, right? Sending
Okay.
out a message to somebody. Daily practices of gratitude are huge. There's a few different ways you can do them. So I'll break into them really quick. I have a friend that does this really cool practice where before they get out of bed in the morning, before their feet hit the ground, they go, okay, I'm going to think really quickly about 3 things that I want to happen today and 3 things I'm grateful for. And now once I've got those, okay, now I'm going to get up and start my day. It's a fuel for them to start. It could be in the evening. For many years, I used to write down 3 things that I was grateful for each day. But I think on a more actionable sense, to create that rippling effect, so that's a personal thing you can do, but that ripple effect, a good tip is the minute that you think of somebody, in a hopefully in a positive sense, send them the message, right? It's that easy. We live in such a world where it's so easy to send somebody a quick message that just do it. And don't worry about like, oh, I haven't talked to them in like 3 months. Who cares? Like if somebody that you knew you haven't talked to in 3 months or whatever like that, just sent you a message, and it can be super simple. It can be like, hey, was just thinking about you today. Hope you're doing well. Hope you and your family are happy and healthy. and that's it. You don't have to like get into, sorry, I haven't messaged you in 3 months. Who cares? Just send a message, say, hey, I've been thinking about you. Hope all is well. Much love. Right?
Yeah.
That's a super easy way to just practice some gratitude and start that ripple effect right out the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can mean so much to people. And just like how what you experienced, it might come at the exact time that they need it. I
Yeah.
let's see. On Trevor Warden's Hotness Unleasher post that he did of my little snippet, I had highlighted all sorts of people in my 90 seconds that I was given. And I had a couple people reach out to me and they're like, Daniel, thank you so much for tagging me. I feel so honored and grateful that you would shout me out like that. One person said that I really needed that day. And what's interesting is like I had said that like 2 weeks ago, right? And they didn't know, they didn't see it. I
Mm-hmm.
Until it went out and it was shared and they got to hear it again because they got tagged. Like it's so important that you just, like so like Latanya is saying to just take that
Just,
step and send the message. Like
mm-hmm.
yeah, so many times I'll get it in my head that it has been too long that okay, now I need to craft this perfect
Yeah.
message to send to somebody. So I love that you're saying that. That's so important. And it's just such a good encouragement to, say that you just gotta send it, right? And if they
Yeah.
have a problem with it, they're gonna appreciate that you reached out in the first place, right?
Yeah. And on the flip side of that too, like don't feel like when you're doing things, if you're not getting a reciprocal answer from it right away, don't feel like you're doing something wrong. So one thing that really helped me develop my brand to be what it is now is when I started on my post of 365 posted up for a year, I didn't get a lot of attention right away and stuff like that. But what would happen eventually is I'd meet people in person that maybe I was going to coffee with or something like that, and they would just say like in passing, "Oh, by the way, I've been really looking forward to seeing your posts every day. They really
Mhm.
make me feel better and stuff like that." And these people weren't even necessarily engaging on them on a social media standpoint. And again, that's only one message that I've gotten from somebody about the newsletter, right? So who knows how many people I'm being affected by and not getting that. A day by Daniel is a good day. But it is, right? Because again, to lean back into this, it means that you're being recognized for something, right? And like again, you're kind of getting you're showing gratitude for that, right? And yeah, Daniel's really, really good at that.
Hold on. We're gonna pause it right here because I can't even tell you how great I feel, but just from seeing that statement, that comment right there, like that made me feel so good. Like, thank you, Christina, for saying that. Like, do you see the impact that you can have on people? It's
Hmm.
incredible. Thank you. I mean
Yeah,
that so much. Like, that's
so
so
good.
awesome. And I tagged so many people that are positive people in my post today, which had been so long. I feel like since I did a post like that. I have been promoting my podcast, promoting this, promoting that, like head deep in the app, like so many things, app promotion coming soon. But so I posted today this unicorn riding a rainbow off of a coffee cup onto, my whatever the post was. And I tagged people and I felt so great just because I felt like I was contributing to what you're doing, Freeman, and what is my mission, which is why you and I are so aligned. And as I was reading more about you, I'm like, oh, it just makes so much sense. Come from an operational background, you've got some design experience, you're doing speaking engagements, you're spreading positivity. You and I, like, we are so aligned in so many ways. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. I think we're both quite aware of that ability to, have that huge ripple effect, right? But yeah, I love that you just put this comment up, right? Positivity is healing. Latanya, you're like 100% right there. I could, and maybe we'll get into this more, but there's so much, it's totally off topic now, but there's so much research behind what positivity does for your well-being, not just mental, but literally your physical well-being.
mhm.
To lean into one of my other daily tips, and I guess I'll just pull this right through into it. My favorite daily tip, hands down, this is the easiest one for anybody to do, is before you go to bed, write down 3 things that went well that day. I don't care where you write them.
I love
Write them
it.
down on a piece of paper, write them on your phone, write them on your forehead and marker. Doesn't matter. That one would be hard. But write them down. And what happens is it begins to change your brain to look for the good throughout the day that happens, even while the day is happening, right? Because you're literally asking your brain at the end of the day, saying, "Hey, what went well today?" You go to sleep with a better mindset, et cetera, et cetera. The
Right.
reason I bring this up when we talk about positivity is healing is they did a study on 2 groups of people. One group that was told to write down, I thought it was 3 things, which is weird because I didn't know about the study when I had the idea. But write down 3 things each day that went well that day, and then the control group was just wrote down 3 neutral things, just whatever, right? Write down 3 things that happened, whatever they were. The group, and they did this for a week. The group that did it for a week saw better happiness kind of metrics a month later, 3 months later, and even 6 months later. And not only were they more positive and happy individuals, they showed less signs of illness. Up
Wow.
to half a year after only doing it for a week. So
What?
it really shows that like having that positive outlook on life and being literally just being a happier person actually makes you physically healthier.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
It
amazing.
just, yeah, it absolutely amazing. And it's so easy. That's like the easiest thing you can do in the world, right?
Yeah. I love this. I am just, first off, so before we got started and he's been doing so good, my dog was like barking and I've been kind of anxious that he was going to be barking like crazy this whole episode, but
He just wants to
now
co-host, man.
I know, and I tried, but it just wasn't working out. So, I had to put him away. And yeah, but seeing the comment from Christina, like it was all gone. I stopped thinking about my dog. Here I am talking about him again, but I don't feel that same way. And I think that it just kind of helped me release that thought and the tension that I had from thinking about him barking and just kind of, where it was,
Hmm.
where I was at before. So, I love that. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And she says, but you have the positive impact, in my opinion.
There you
We
go.
all do,
It's that ripple, right?
And it's that ripple. That's exactly what I was gonna say. It is a perpetual thing that, you can stop it by letting a situation affect your attitude negatively, or you can continue it by letting a situation not get to you or not letting a situation get to you and continuing that positive attitude. Especially if you can
Hmm.
take something positive from it and learn from it and be like, "Man, what an experience that was." And
Yeah, which I guess we'll go into another tip I'll throw out because this is what we're doing here. Um,
I
with
want
that as
to
well,
no, say,
you go ahead. No,
no,
give
no,
her.
no. I was just
Okay.
gonna throw out there if anybody else has tips to a positive attitude to
Yes.
keep throwing them in the comments because I want to highlight them. I want to just blast this whole show with positive tips that support everybody. So,
Yeah.
and if you're
I
not
love I
watching
love
this
this
live,
positive mindset leads to genuine happiness because it
absolutely.
does. There's all kinds of again wild studies that show that like and you can try this. Just start laughing and you feel better, right? It's
Yeah.
just chemicals, right? Your body starts to release dopamine. So like literally just looking at things more positively, acting more positively, spreading more positivity will literally make you feel better and be happier. So yeah, Samantha, 100% right.
Yeah. I was on a call one day. It was a Institute call, and my friend Brian Muka, he got on, and he's like, "I want to do an exercise with everybody. Everyone's just gonna laugh. I want you, turn yourselves off of mute, and I want you to just start laughing. Give it your most ridiculous, belly aching laugh possible." And I felt like $1,000,000 after that. I felt so great. I about died because it was so funny that I thought that was awesome. It'd be cool is if we did like a little bonus episode where we just invited as many people on to just come on and laugh together and just cycle it
Yes.
through.
Yes. See how long you
All
can
right.
go for before your
So
face hurts.
anyway, I interrupted you. You had a tip. I hope you didn't lose it.
I got it.
Lay
It's
it on
locked
us.
in.
All right.
So when it comes to, you were talking about how we, um, may deal with problems or situations and stuff like that. And you got to look at them in a positive light. This is one of my favorite things that people talk about, right? Because they're like, "Oh, Freeman, if you're positive all the time, you don't get any negative, or you don't see the negative things that are happening, right? The whole rose tinted glasses thing comes up a lot. Um, and it's not that, so by being positive and optimistic, it's not that you don't ever experience the negative things or see them. It's that you understand how to rationalize and work through them. So this, interestingly enough, started for myself when I was a raft guide for many years. And you're taught to do this thing when you're approaching a situation that's maybe not good, um, to stop, right? STOP. Stop, think, observe, and then plan. And if you do the same thing around a situation and trying to become look at a more positive mindset and deal with the negative, stop kind of going down the rabbit hole of negativity, right? Think about it for a second, rationalize through that negative thing, observe why you're feeling the negative way you're feeling and what that actually is, and then plan on how you want to get past that negativity and let it remove itself from your brain, and literally write down how that's going to happen. Because what happens is when we write something down, it comes out of our brain and goes into a piece of paper, and you can let it go, right? So go, okay, cool. Like, oh, let's just use this for example. I did really bad on a test, maybe, right? Okay, that sucked, but how can I do better at that test, right? Why did I do badly at the test? What can I do next time to get better? Okay, those are the things. Okay, now I'm going to create a study schedule for next month. And I'm going to create this. I'm going to sit down on Monday morning and create that study schedule and write down Monday morning, 8 a.m., create study schedule for November. Done. Now, sure, you had a negative thought, but you've moved past it. You've gotten to a positive thing. And now you have a positive action afterwards of how you're going to continue and not have to deal with that again.
That is incredible. I love that acronym. Perfect. And it just makes so much sense, I like to say to combat anger with curiosity, So I think that goes right along with it. And that first part of it is to stop. The second part is to think, and then you observe. And then when it comes to anger, I hope the planning part isn't then you're, planning some attack to get back at whoever or whatever made you angry, right? But that comes back to the whole positivity thing. Plan a way that you can turn that into something positive. Bad example. It's not even really an example, but I think that makes just so much sense. So that's a great tip. I love that. Love that so much. Samantha says the best thing about positivity, the more you spread it, the more you have to give.
100%. It's totally like that. I feel so grateful that I have found this mission of spreading positivity and helping people feel it more, because I get, the reciprocating factor of that, which is I also get to spread positivity and feel better about what's going on. And every time I write in my newsletter, then at the end of every newsletter, I write, I feel so grateful to do this because I get to give it to people and help people with it. Right. And it's such a powerful thing to be able to do, even at a small point. And the fact that I am creating a branding around it, I cannot begin to say how grateful I am that that's what I get to do. And I get to see it in the people around me, for sure.
That's so great. So how long have you been doing the newsletter?
I actually looked up that the other day. Yeah, I started at the end of September, I think.
Okay.
So we're coming on to like three or so months now. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
It feels like longer, but I look back on it today and I was like, whoa, I've written a lot of these now.
Yeah. No, you and I were just talking about, podcasting and number of episodes and stuff like that, right? And it's like how you get to the places you get in such a short period of time is just crazy. Oh, yeah. We're getting our tip back again. Did you want to say anything else about that tip, the stop tip?
Yeah, I will add something to that is that if you start practicing this, don't feel bad if you struggle with it at first. Because like anything, like we talked about before, it's going to be tough when you start doing this. It's like positive thinking. Some people struggle with it at first and they think, oh, I'm never going to make this work. Again, I'm never going to be able to walk, right? Yeah. Keep practicing it. Again, I love the metaphor of walking. You're not going to do it perfectly at first. Maybe the first thing that you manage to do, the first few times you do it, all you manage to do is to stop and think about it. Maybe you don't get to the planning stage, right? Or maybe you stop and plan, but maybe you don't think of it and observe, right? But don't beat yourself up if you don't do it at 100%. Just start doing it, and it'll get easier the more you practice it. With
Okay.
any of these
Yeah.
tips, that goes with everything that is happening both in the chat and that we're talking about.
Right. And so you talk about walking. What a blessing for people that can walk, just that we can walk, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that alone is worth being happy about and having a positive attitude about when you're able to walk. And for everybody, every single person, this one that Christina and her comments taking over half the screen, but that Christina just mentioned applies to every single person in the world, right? That you can wake up. Just the fact that we're here, the fact that we get the opportunity to wake up and walk or try to walk, we can open our eyes or not, but we're here. You can think, you can feel or touch or smell or see or whatever.
it's
That's
pretty special.
that alone is reason enough to choose to be positive.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's read her comment because I am talking about it. She said, "Wake up and choose to be positive. Even when things are not going your way, it is better for your overall health. And your mood is contagious. So better to spread positivity to others than to be a downer and bring everyone down."
Yeah. So two things that I want to break down in this comment that I think are really, really powerful. One, your mood is contagious. So what happens? There's a really cool psychological thing that happens to us, biologically, actually. Sorry, we have these things called mirror neurons in our brains, and this is what the same thing. So like if you're watching football or rugby or a very physical sport, and you see somebody get hit or tackled, a part of you sort of feels that, right? You're like, oh, that probably hurt. You know what I mean? It's also why the same thing is when you yawn, somebody else will yawn. So you have these things called mirror neurons, and what actually happens is that when you see something happening physically to somebody else, you actually get a similar firing of neurons in your own brain. So smiling is hugely contagious because when you smile and somebody sees you smiling, a part of their brain literally feels like they're smiling.
Hmm,
And then to
interesting.
double up on, yeah, it's wild. It's an incredibly interesting thing that kind of happens. And then to piggyback on that more, negativity will ripple way harder than positivity, even with with a contagious emotion, right? So it's really, really important that it is a positive emotion that you're putting up because and we've all experienced this, right? We call it like when somebody comes to the office, like a cloud over their head. The minute that person walks in, that emotion is felt. And it is more impactful negatively, which is why I think it's so important to try to be more positive.
Right. Yeah. I mean, 100%. And just to tie it back into being a connector, because this is the Unicorn Connector Show.
Yeah,
And I
100%.
and there's a reason why this is part of the unicorn DNA to have a positive and uplifting attitude. There's a reason why I want to focus on this as one of the early episodes because I believe that by spreading that message just once and to connectors and emphasizing the importance that it has on the world, that you can have the attitude that you have can travel to 1,000 faces, even 1,000,000. It can have a long-term impact on this world. And that's why it's so important that, if you identify as a connector, I think you have even more of a responsibility to try to maintain a positive attitude as much as possible. So
Hmm.
we're just kind of highlighting some of the comments here, um, but yeah, and if we don't highlight them all, then sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just think that's so important.
Yeah, I love that walking is therapeutic. That's another big tip of mine is to be active, right? There's a lot of science that shows what happens to your brain when you get out and you walk around, you get fresh air. Even if you live in an urban center, again, another interesting study, probably gonna be saying that a lot this podcast. They took people and they had them walk through a city park on their break and had them walk down a city block during their
Mm,
break. And just this year walking through the park, that those groups who walked to the park were way more productive. They were a lot happier, and they got more. Well, not I think it was productive, and they communicated better after that than the group that had just walked down a city block. All because they chose to walk down the path with the trees versus the path with the cars and the noise. So very important to get out and walk around.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'd be
Yeah.
curious to hear people's experiences if they did that same exercise. However, they had the people walking through the park not make eye contact with anybody, not smile at anybody, or anything like that, and the people walking down the city block to do those things. Smile, look
Mm.
people in the eyes, say hello. I'm curious how much that
Yeah.
would flip the results of that exercise, right? I mean, I feel like it would be a completely different situation, right? And so just
Definitely.
like having that the mindset that okay, you're going down the street and you're going down into a park, like that alone, I feel like is going to elevate somebody's attitude just going into it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, just a
I do
thought.
want to
I don't
I
know.
do want to drop into Rod's comment here because I like this. Within this
Yeah.
method, other times when it's not okay to be positive, and this is referring to the stop, think, observe, plan
Yes.
method. And is it okay to not be positive? I think I do hesitate to how I want to say this, but I think it's okay to be realistic. And I think realistic and negative and pessimism are very different pieces of the spectrum. I think it's okay to be realistic. I think it's super healthy to be realistic. I think the positivity needs to come in the outcome. You want to be thinking of a positive outcome of the situation because that's
Mm,
inevitably what you'll drive towards. If you think of a negative outcome situation, that's also what you're going to drive towards. So you can be realistic during the situation, but you do want to have a positive goal in mind for that planning stage. So hopefully that helped answer your question there, Rod.
I think that makes tons of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I'm not going to speak for Rod, but I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
You know, because things happen, right? We go through losses. We go through experiences that feel like the whole world is against us, right? But if you can understand that it's just an experience and that there's a bright yellow, ray of sunshine on the other end that you can get through it, then it's all going to be okay. If you can get through the next
Mm-hmm.
24 hours or the last 24 hours, you can get through the 24 hours after
Yeah,
that,
and I
right?
think there's definitely something to be said about, and I mean, again, this is very biological, about what you don't want to do, and I want to be very clear about this. What you don't want to do is suppress your negative emotion because that's not healthy. You want to work through and rationalize through the negative emotion and get to a place of positivity, not just crush the negative and don't look at it because that doesn't help anybody. But you
Right.
do want to be able to rationalize through it, and that's why that stopping, think, observe, and planning is so important.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So I am really happy that Christina mentioned this.
Yes.
This is something I was
Yes.
thinking about. So I'll let you dig into this one. And
Cool.
yeah, so
Yeah. I
why
mean,
don't you
let's just
read
play
that
out as
comment and
yeah.
yeah,
I also so
speak.
yeah, Christina, this is beautiful. I also feel really positive. I also feel my positivity helps me get leads in business. Others are drawn to positive people, like 1,000%. Just think of it on your own basis, right? Again, to go back to this whole people feel the moods and effects that you're coming into. If you walk into a situation and the person that you want to do business with is sort of negative and maybe pessimistic, like you're not going to feel encouraged to do business with that person. They're not going to be like, yeah, we can make that happen. Sure.
Right.
And again, realistic. Sure, that might take us longer or cost more, but we can make something like that happen. And that's as a consumer or a client, that's what you want to hear. You want to hear, yes, you want to hear, we can, right? That's what you want to lead with. You can add buts to it, right? We can, but it's going to cost a little bit more. That's okay. We can,
Right.
but it's going to take us a little bit while. Also okay. That's better than no, it's not possible. It costs too much,
Mm,
right? Even from a person doing business, it's better to lead off on that other foot, right?
right.
And yeah, 100% people are drawn to positive individuals.
Right.
There's no doubt about
Yeah.
that.
Right. And so like I was saying at the beginning, I have been thinking about this episode quite a bit since we were planning it. And I was thinking about how your attitude as a connector, if you have a negative attitude, you're going to be far less successful than if you have a positive attitude. And that can generate all sorts of opportunities for you. And also that just by meeting with somebody, if you are in a negative space and you're not portraying a positive attitude with somebody, and you tell them, hey, I want to connect you with somebody, which is incredibly important as connectors in the world, that you make connections to help people out. They might not even want it, right? And that's the last thing you want, is to know that there's an opportunity to help somebody out, but they just don't even want to entertain it because they're like, that's great, good for you, but you were really negative when I met you. I'm worried about the kind of people you're going to connect me with, right?
Yeah.
So I
100%. Yeah, and like to play into that like a little bit more, right? Like let's say for example, I guess to spin this into another tip, which I learned from I can't remember what the book is called, but it was from somebody who did a lot of improv teaching, and it's where they learned about instead of saying no and say yes but, because it's easier to flow through conversation. So lead was yes but, or yes and if you're even better. To put that into context and to lean on what you were saying, if if somebody approaches you and say, hey, can you help me with blank? Let's say for example you can't help them with blank. You want to say no, I can't help you, but instead you go, yeah, I can help you with that. I can't personally help you, but I know somebody who can help you, right? So yeah, I can help you find somebody who can help you with that. Again, you always want to be like leading on a positive note instead of just being like, no, I don't know how to do that, right?
right, right. Yeah, find ways that you can do what is going to
Yeah.
be helpful to somebody, right?
Yeah. And they're going to remember that. And that's the really big important thing about that is even if you can't, let's say you can't help the person with what they're trying to do. And this has happened to me in business a lot, where it's like, hey, sorry, I can't help you with that. Here's somebody who can, or here's some place you can find it, more information about it. And then eventually down the road, maybe they're going to, connect you to somebody else, right? Like, oh man, Daniel was really helpful, last week when I was trying to find information about this thing, you know. And then they're going to be you're going to be in that person's brain. So the next time they're talking to somebody who, you know, knows how to connect people really well, they'll be like, "Oh, Daniel was really helpful. He knows how to connect people. I want to introduce this person to Daniel." And that's how that positivity can lead to that.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, they're not going to want to help
absolutely.
you. Like you don't want to help
Right.
somebody who is negative. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
basic
unless it's
rule of
helped
that.
them find more positivity. Here, go subscribe to the newsletter, right?
This is true. Yes, yeah. If they're really negative people, just be like, hey, you know what you need to do? You need to go check out this Freeman guy because he'll make you feel better.
Right, right. So Freeman, what inspired you to start the newsletter?
So interestingly enough, a lot of it came from the daily posts. So I was doing the daily posts, and
Hmm.
then
Which you're
I was at
on
a
number.
245 of
Awesome.
365. And I think I'm just going to keep going afterwards. I'm going to go to 366 because I don't
Did
want
you
to
say
stop.
until it's 366?
No. I'll just keep going. I'll do
Okay.
365, then 366, and then 367 because I don't want to
Yeah.
stop yet. But I was doing those, and I was at a networking event and talking with some individuals. And again, the power of the connections here. Somebody that who's been following my post for a long time, introduced me to somebody else. And he was like, hey, I can't remember this guy's name, let's call him Trevor. Hey, Trevor, this is Freeman. He posts daily on LinkedIn and about this positive educational content. And then I'm like, oh, hey, Trevor, blah, 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 blah. And Trevor was like, oh, well, like, how do you plan to monetize it? And I was like, I didn't even think about that. I mean, I'm just helping spread kind of positivity, right? And he was like, well, maybe you should like consider starting a newsletter. And I was like, oh, like I hadn't even thought of it, but just I was like, oh, a newsletter, that'd be really cool. And so even though my newsletter isn't monetized, that was where that kind of first thought came in. Was like, oh, I should start a newsletter where other people who maybe don't have LinkedIn or aren't really on social media can kind of find it, but also I can go deeper into some of the concepts I talk in on social media,
Right.
and give people like actionable stuff afterwards. So, but again, yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, it just that happened through connection.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Interesting. That's really cool to know. And I love that you took action and, you are providing that value weekly. I think that's awesome. So, um,
Hmm.
so yeah. So let's see here. And just so we can shout it out, if you do want to subscribe to Freeman's newsletter, it's 365 Positivity, and go to freemanbeals.substack.com. That's freemanbeals.substack.com. I want to put that out there because it is a great newsletter to get weekly tips. And if you're not following him on LinkedIn, make sure that you are. So we're not done though. I wanted to ask, just to plug that one in there real quick because we're on it.
I love it. I
And
love it.
again, the ticker's there. This is going to go to audio, and I want to make sure that people that are listening later on have that resource. It'll be in the description, show notes, all over the place. But I want to make sure you have that access because he's doing that for you. He's doing that to spread positivity, and I think that's so important.
And
So
the cool thing with Substack is you can go in and read some of my stuff without subscribing. So you can decide
okay,
if you want to, like, you can, when you load up on that webpage, you'll see a subscribe, and just below that it says let me look at it first, and you can click on that and you can actually see the posts to see if they are something you're interested in before you give me your email address.
yeah, but don't hesitate to subscribe.
No, it's worth it.
Show him that support.
It's on Monday. It's only going to take you anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes to read. You can read it while you drink your coffee or however you start your morning. So
Yeah.
I don't want to. I try really hard not to overwhelm people with the information in there.
Yeah, for sure. Start your day with a cup of positivity, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
I love it. Start your week, right? Which I love that you. That's what your podcast is called. So if you haven't listened to his podcast, it's a cup of positivity, and on Spotify, right?
It's on Spotify. Yeah, I really need to get it onto the other platforms. So
Okay.
if you're listening to this in like a month time, you'll probably be able to find it everywhere else.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
it's just
cool.
a cup of positivity.
Got it. All right. So let's see here. We have a comment from Christina. We're highlighting it. So she said, I was previously laid off and could have been negative and stayed in bed. Instead, I stayed positive and jumped in LinkedIn. It was my job for the 2 months I was unemployed, but I chose to stay positive on and off LinkedIn. My new boss loved my upbeat personality. That's amazing.
So good.
I
And
love
I
it.
think that really shows kind of the benefits and impact of doing that. It's just
Right.
very interesting that Christina says that because it's very similar to kind of a lot of something I did, and that positivity certainly, I hope so anyways, helped me land one of the jobs that I have right now that lets me
Yeah.
kind of continue to do this positivity thing. So it is interesting to see the reciprocating factors to a professional level of
Right.
living a more positive lifestyle, not just for you, but even what it does for your success and in your jobs, right? Again,
Right.
as an employer, you are going to feel more drawn to hire somebody who has a positive impact because you know that they're going to enter your workforce as a positive individual. They're going to uplift individuals, and hopefully you understand that that's going to make your team a lot more efficient.
Right. Yeah. And so after reading through that comment from Christina, I wanted to go back to Latanya's comment and just how, much they tie together because so her comment is positivity leads to joy and joy is long lasting. You can choose to let those situations bring you down and you're going to feel upset all the time. You're not going to be, motivated to get out of bed. You're not going to feel motivated to, you know, keep persevering through and finding the job and having a positive attitude when you go to the interviews and stuff like that. And but having a positive attitude, it leads to more joy, and that is long lasting because if you go at it with a negative attitude, you're going to be less likely to succeed, which brings us all together with the how positivity helps you be more successful, right? We want to expand on that a little bit, Freeman?
Yes, I love this concept. So this is a really powerful concept and a huge reason to push why I push or what I push. So we live in this world where we've been taught that success will make us happy. And interestingly, it's been proven that it's completely the other way around. The problem with
Mm,
the success makes us happy model is that you're continually chasing something. And once you get the something, now you assume that, cool, I have my thing. Now I'm happy about it. And unfortunately, this happened due to schooling and the society we live in, right? Once you get the A grade, now you can feel better. Once you land a new job, now you can feel better, etc. But if you flip the script on that and focus on the happiness part of it first and focus about being more positive and enjoying what you're doing more, what happens, you begin to become more successful. And this goes back into what I was talking about essentially an optimistic attitude versus a pessimistic attitude. if you're not happy and not living in an optimistic attitude, you're going to miss out on opportunities. You're going to not get as much done at work, at school, in your relationship life. You're going to not find the people that are also happy and bringing that kind of joy. So when you're pessimistic, right, you're going to just look at the problems. You're going to see the issues. You're going to just not do something because you're worried about a negative outcome of it. So literally being happier ultimately will lead you to be more successful.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. And anybody who's chased success thinking that it's going to make them happy, who then discovered that chasing happiness is what actually makes you successful, can attest to that statement being true.
And I mean, yeah, and there's tons of evidence about that, right? Like you can see so many people who got the fancy stuff, made it big, hit the jackpot on things, and they were still miserable.
Yeah.
It's very important that you find the joy first, and then the success afterwards. And
Yeah.
part of that is part of what's so important about doing that and leaning into that other comment that Christina made about the long lastingness. If you can build into your life positive habits and things, it becomes subconscious to you. And that's how habits work, right? You don't think about all the habits you have. That would be wild if you actively thought about every single habit that you did during the day. So if you begin to ingrain positive habits into your life, you begin to ingrain a positive way of living into your life. And that's the key to doing it.
That's awesome.
It's those little positive bits that you don't realize you're doing anymore. You don't realize that you're looking at something in a positive lens. You don't actively have to think continually, am I thinking positive? Because it just comes second nature. And it's a lot of people think that that's not achievable for them. This is another common thing that I get. It's like, oh, like I'm just a negative person. And I'm like, sorry, that's not how our brains work. Our brains live in this neuroplasticity, which means that we can affect and change the way that our neurons fire and how our brains are structured. One of my favorite kind of examples of this is that monks who daily meditate, have daily positive affirmations, actually have a more active, am I getting part of the brain wrong here? Frontal precortex, which is where your happiness comes from. So theirs is literally more active than people who don't do it.
Got it.
And so you can train your brain to become more happy and more active.
I can attest to that. I don't really have them up anymore. I have different Post-its. I like to put Post-its around my house. And something I was listening to said to write an H on some Post-its and put them around as reminders to be happy, And so I really took that seriously. And there was a situation where I was actually in an argument with my brother, and I, separated from him, was in my spot for a minute, and I saw one of those Post-its, and I was like, okay, all right. So I went and I looked in the mirror and I just smiled, and I totally wiped my funk away. And I was like, all right, this is just a bad situation. We have a disagreement, whatever. I can fix that by tapping into my mindset and focusing on the positive aspects of it, which are that we're able to actually have that dialogue to begin with, right? And so I returned to the conversation, and unfortunately, he hadn't gone through that same exercise. He wasn't very happy that I tapped into those little extra tools that I had. But regardless, from a selfish standpoint, it was a great way for me to tap into a positive mindset. Just having those reminders, right? Whatever it might be, that just Freeman, just you having the little sun at the end of your name is a great reminder to be positive. It's a great positivity reminder. Seriously,
Dude,
that's
that's a
what I think
powerful
of
tip.
every time I see that.
Yeah, I think it's good to do to put those little things in places that keep you wanting to have that positivity. One thing that I haven't done yet that I've been meaning to do recently is get the word smile tattooed on the inside of my finger. So that every time I look down at my hand, it's just a gentle reminder to smile. So one of the first tattoos I got was a tattoo that's on my wrist that says "Live Life," and it was just a gentle reminder to myself to. Well, it wasn't that gentle, I suppose, because I got it tattooed into my skin.
How
But it
important
was,
it is.
yeah, it was a reminder to myself to do exactly that, to continue living life. And I'll never forget. I was 19, maybe 20, and I was driving home from an oil field job at the time, and I was sitting at a stop sign, and I remember thinking I can either go to LA next month. I quit my job and drive to LA with my best friend and spend a month on the road. Or maybe I should keep working. Maybe I should make a bit more money. And I was sitting at the stoplight thinking about this. And as I looked down at my wrist, which was on the steering wheel, and I saw that tattoo, and I went, nope, I'm going to go to LA. I'm going to drive down the coast to LA instead, because that's why I got this tattoo. And it was a great decision. I had a lovely month. And 2 months later, the same company that I quit hired me back anyways. So
Wow.
I didn't really
Awesome.
lose out on much. But yeah, I think sticky notes probably a better idea, a little less permanent feeling maybe than the tattoo. So maybe just put some sticky notes around your house. I think that's a super cool, easy way of doing it.
They're yellow.
They're yellow as well, even
Yes.
better. Definitely, I'm gonna start putting sticky notes around my house.
Hey, you can do a smiley face, you can do an
Yeah,
H, you can do all sorts of things. So I I recommend it. Why not have those reminders? And
hmm,
after seeing them so many times, they do kind of, you do kind of turn like you don't see them as much after they're there for so long, right? Unless you start moving them around. But it's about the habit that it establishes, right? That if you're feeling down about something, you can tap into those reminders that it's a choice, even though sometimes it might be very difficult to get out of it, but that you can choose to be positive, right? You can go look in the mirror and smile at yourself. I would challenge anybody who's having a rough day to go look in the mirror and smile and see what it does to you.
hundred
Works
percent.
wonders. It really does, you know? So I think that that's super important. Well, Freeman, it's been awesome having you on. I want to throw it out there while we wrap this up. If anybody has any questions for Freeman or extra tips they want to throw out there, please do in the comments. Freeman, are there any other tips that you wanted to mention? And also, if you wanted to talk about this something magical that happened recently and why that was so magical, do you want me to tell you what you said? Something about
Yeah.
Irish dancers.
Oh man, yeah, that was really cool. I'll start with that, and then maybe my brain will come up with another tip afterwards. But no, I was
Okay.
out at a. I guess there. Here we go, another tip already. Try to find, yeah, try to find things in your life that you do find joy in, and then try to make those things more of a priority in life, right? So one of the things that me and my wife find joy in are Christmas markets. So there was one happening nearby our house that we went to a couple weekends ago. I had the joy of bringing my younger sister along as well. And at this Christmas market were these Irish dancers that performed on a stage. And it was incredible the level of energy that they brought forward and the way that the crowd responded to that and the difference that I saw it make in people's energy as well. Everybody from the market came together in front of the stage to like watch this really amazing Irish dance performance. So definitely, it's just a good reminder to myself that like, yeah, like I need to find these things that make me happy and prioritize them.
That's awesome. I love it. Cool.
So that would be
Okay.
my last tip. There's probably more in my brain somewhere, but
Absolutely. Well, that's all right. That's why you have created some things at least, to continue to promote those tips and share those tips with the world, right? One is the newsletter. So, again, we mentioned it before, we'll mention it again, and we'll shout out to Latanya. Take the plunge and subscribe. See, you might not want to, promote it in that way, but I want to
everybody
support
else is
you as
promoting
much
it.
as
Man, you guys are
possible.
amazing.
Yeah. So freemanbeals.substack.com. Go subscribe. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science. Check out his
It's pretty
newsletter.
straightforward.
This man is a very incredibly positive person. And if you're looking for a cup of positivity every Monday morning, that's where you're going to find it. So,
100%.
anything else? Freeman, where can people find you aside from your newsletter?
100%. So I am on LinkedIn. Like I said, with my daily posts, you can find me on LinkedIn at Freeman Beals. I'm the one with the little sunshine that Daniel alluded to there. Bringing my sunshine every day, everywhere I go. You can
And the
find me on
Santa hat?
Instagram and the Santa hat. Oh yeah, that's right. That's on my LinkedIn right now too. I forgot.
Currently.
Currently, it'll come off in December, so you got to get in there quick
Yeah.
and see it. And then yeah, you can find me on Instagram as well at Freeman Beals. Super easy. Everything's under my name, which is convenient. I'm not as active on Instagram as I am on LinkedIn, but I do plan to become a lot more active on Instagram soon. So if you are active on Instagram and don't follow me yet, you might want to, because crazy things might start happening. Who knows?
I love it. That's awesome. All right, cool. Well, and lastly, so if anybody has a podcast and is looking for some speakers, make sure to reach out to Freeman. Um, that is who he stated is his golden connection, and he has a dream to become an international speaker and a talk show host. So if you have any tips to make that happen or anything like that, please reach out. You never know what it can happen from a single conversation, and connecting with somebody like Freeman is absolutely worth doing because he is such a positive and inspiring and uplifting person that you really just can't go wrong. So,
Oh, thanks,
anything
man.
else you want to mention, Freeman, before we wrap this up?
Man, the only thing I really want to mention before we wrap this up is just, again, thank you so much, Daniel. I think what you're doing with the unicorn connector, the whole premise of it is so incredibly powerful. I love your mission of like a billion, billions. It's billions of people. Let me get this right. Billions of people, and I think that the way you're doing it by putting the right individuals together is the key to that. So, man, like, hat off to you. Kudos to what you're doing, because I think you're making a pretty powerful positive impact in the world too. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, Freeman. And thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate the support in the comments. This has been an absolutely incredible show. So if you are watching this later on or listening to it, thank you for being here. And we appreciate you. And just
Tell your
remember,
friends.
tell your friends, subscribe to the podcast, check out Freeman Beals, and don't forget that your attitude can travel 1,000 faces and 1,000,000 places, and maybe flip those, whatever. But it can be exponential and
Ooh, can I
infectious.
leave? Actually, I'll leave with one quick, really powerful thing.
Okay,
That I
please
think
do.
everybody can take away here.
Okay.
One of my favorite things is, could you imagine if there's 7.8 billion people on Earth? I think we're up to 8 now. If each one of us did one thing to make somebody else's life better, that's impact that could change the world.
Right. Absolutely. So, what would that one thing be? What's one thing you can do to positively impact somebody's life in a very easy and simple way?
I think the easiest thing is to just be more open and smile at people. Find moments in your day to help people hold doors open, help somebody carry their groceries, pay for a coffee, right? Send somebody a text message. Just
I
something
love that.
small. Don't make it complicated.
Yeah. So we still have some people here. I want to hear from the audience too while we're on. What are some simple ways that you can positively impact people's lives? Like, flood the comments. What are your ideas? Let's just start shooting them off. So some things that I can think of are compliment somebody, right? Tell them something uplifting about them, right? Send somebody a thank you message or a note or a voicemail, right? What else do we got?
I think do something special for someone you care deeply about is huge,
Mm,
right? Maybe, and it, again, simple, but buy a bouquet of flowers on the way home. Set up a candle on the dinner table for the night, right? If you know
yeah.
what your SO or your kid's favorite movie is, line it up for after dinner and be like, hey, you know what we're gonna do tonight? We're gonna go watch your favorite movie. Just, again, it's really simple, quick, easy things, right?
Right.
And
Right.
in business, again, you could go into the office, on Monday morning, and give a warm welcome to the receptionist or the security guard or your taxi driver,
Yeah.
right?
Ask someone if they need help with something. Give a
Yeah.
generous tip, right? Send something valuable that somebody's been looking for. Make a connection,
Give somebody
you
the
know?
benefit of the doubt as
Yeah.
well.
Just checking in with somebody, especially if they're alone. Thank you, Christina.
Very, very important.
Especially
Yeah.
if they're alone. Say hello. Some people go a whole day without speaking to someone, so a hello can be powerful. And your tonality with that can be just as powerful, right? There's a difference between hi, right? As you're walking by somebody versus hey, like
100%.
light them up with your facial expressions, wave to them. throw a little compliment their way. Encourage someone.
That one's
Love
good
it,
too.
Latonya. Yeah. Mm.
I
There's
would
so
say be
many other.
curious as well. Ask
Be
somebody,
curious.
go beyond just the how are you, right?
Yeah.
Be curious
Right.
about them.
Right. Yeah, and that goes that ties into conversations too. If you ask someone a question and they give you an answer, you don't have to let that end right there, especially if you feel there's a little bit of passion there, right? Get curious about their answer, right? Freeman, I know you can, you know, uh, I know this makes sense to you because we've been through some experiences together where, somebody says, like you say, "Oh, where are you from?" "I'm from Utah," or, "Oh, that's awesome. How long did you live in Utah?" Or even you can just repeat it back to them, "Oh, you're from Utah." They might even expand on that, right? They might go
Yeah.
into a whole conversation. Yeah, but I was actually from Spain and I lived in St. George for a couple of years. I plan on moving to Arizona. That's me. That's my real answer to them, right? So just saying, right? And an amazing person that you and I are both connected with, Brandon Godoris, is who I learned that from. And shout out to Brandon because I know he's going to change the world too. And he doesn't know this, but he's got an event in Stanford called the A to B conference. And so if
Mm,
you're in that area and you're listening to this, um, make sure you check that event out. I will be there. And
it's
Freeman
gonna be
is
amazing. I unfortunately
trying
will
to
not be
get
there.
convinced by me to go there, but
It
yeah,
probably won't happen. There is a small bundle of joy coming into my life at that point in time, so I don't think I'll
yeah,
be there.
right. Anyway, I really appreciate him, so I wanted to give him a shout out in that way. Pay for the coffee of someone behind you in the Starbucks drive-thru. That's awesome. Buy somebody's groceries. Even, that might be a bigger challenge for some people, but it might not be, right? You might be able to assess the situation a little bit and be like, wow, I could pay for the person's groceries and it might not be that challenging for me to do. But I just want to do it.
Yeah, I
Um,
would like to even give a non monetary way of doing something very similar. So let's say you can't afford to pay for somebody's groceries, then let them go in front of you in line. Pay for some
yeah,
resource that you can do. If you have time, let the mother with two kids go in front of you in line,
right,
right?
right. Or let the person that has one thing go in front of you where you've got a cart full of stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'm more of that person with one thing, but just throw that one out there. But so anyway, we could go on and on. I think that we should wrap this up, but that was fun. I'm glad we did that.
So
So
much fun.
more tips coming to your inbox if you subscribe to Freeman's newsletter. I gotta wait for the ticker to get it right. It's
It's
Freeman dot
freemanbeals.substack.com.
Wait, do we have that right up there? Okay, yeah, we do.
Yeah,
All
got
right,
it.
cool. Subscribe to it. Like Latanya said, take the plunge and subscribe. All right, so let's wrap it up. Freeman, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for listening in. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned because there's more magic to come. And this is all about creating a positive impact in the world by making connections in a positive way that help people live a lifestyle of more joy. So that's it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week.